Okay, we're on Lamed Haman Beis, and we stopped yesterday in the middle of a complicated Gemara. So let's do a little bit of a recap. Okay. Before we go to Rabaya, let's start. We were really in the middle of the Gemara before. So the Gemara had said before that it wanted to say what's the we started off with a bunch of kavachemers back and forth with what's Teicha Shabbos, what's Teicha the Avodah, what's Teicha Mizbechi, what takes you away from the Mizbech. The Gemara had said, we wanted to say a kavachemer to say that just like Avodah, we wanted to say that Ritzicha should be Deicha Shabbos. In other words, you should be Bezdin should be able to put somebody to death on Shabbos for being over an Isser Chayve Misas from a Kavachemer. The Gemara wanted to say that Kavachemer to say that Ritzicha should be able to be done on Shabbos, and on that Rava said that we already have a psak about this from Tandrei Rishmal, and we had a Tandrei Rishmal. The pasuk, the Tandrei Rishmal said, and the Gemara said that the Tana had a kasha. What does it mean Mashvei Seichem? Shabbat, usually when it says Mashvei Seichem, it means all over, all communities, all cities where you are, this halacha applies. And you have to say that sometimes by mitzvahs atliyus ba'aretz, that things that are tali in karka, that they apply all over, even in chutz la'aretz. So it would say a pasuk like b'cham mashvei seichem, but something that's a mitzvah that's tali beguf, that's tali in you. The Torah doesn't have to tell you, for example, that you have to put on tefillin even in chutz la'aretz. No, the Torah says put on tefillin. You didn't put on tefillin, and then you didn't know to put on tefillin all over the place. So Shabbos, it says, it says, don't light a fire on Shabbos. And all over. It had to tell you all over. It didn't have to tell you all over because it's a chayvus haguf, it's a chayva on the person's body, and wherever a yid is, he's not allowed to light a fire on Shabbos. So why does it have to say Moshe Seichem? And on that, a Talmud said over B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel, it says a pasuk like this. And let's start from over there. The Gemara says, going back on almost halfway up the Amar, the first word in the line is B'Shem Rabbi Shmuel Amar. You see it? Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amar Talmudech, and the name Rabbi Shmuel, one Talmud said, Visha Nemar, the pasuk says, Kiyiv ish chet mishpat maves v'humas. When a person has a chet mishpat maves, he has a dozen avera that he's mechuyev misa for. V'humas best nest to kill him. V'humas is not the pasuk is not machalik when it is Shemeyani bein b'chal bein b'Shabbos. I would think that that's talking about whether it's b'chal, whether it's b'Shabbos, and we know that it should be even b'Shabbos because we said before you can have a kavachemer from avodah. That just like avodah is deicha Shabbos, just like avodah is deicha Shabbos and Ritzicha is deicha avodah because me'im mizbechi tikchen olamas. So for sure Ritzicha is deicha Shabbos. So you should say that when it says v'humas. It's talking about all over, whether it's Chol or Shabbos. We have a pasuk. You're not allowed to be Mechal Shabbos. Bishar malachas chutz Misas Bezdin. All other malachas except for Misas Bezdin. That's what Mechal Ma'is Yumas is. That's what I would think. And that's my behavina. Zakli Mar throws it right back at you and says, maybe even Misas Bezdin is included in Mechala Ma'isumas. Maybe even Misas Bezdin is Chilul Shabbos. Why? We said that we have a kavachemer. No, it's not a good kavachemer because Kfuras Meis Mitzvah will be Meichiach. Kfuras Meis Mitzvah is Deicha Avodah. We said all the way in the top of the Amud from La'achaisai that Kfuras Meis Mitzvah is Deicha Avodah. However, it's not Deicha Shabbos. So you see, you have no kavachemer anymore. So then that's when we said Ayin Elaf Yul Misas Bezdin, and then Misas that will tell us that Misas Bezdin is included in Chil Shabbos. You're not letting Mekayim it. So Amani Mekayim V'humas. What does the pasuk V'humas say that Bezdin should kill the person who's Chayiv Misa? That would be B'chol. Avalei b'Shabbos. only by the week, but not on Shabbos. Okay, so far so good. Zmar says no, maybe not. Maybe it should even be on Shabbos. V'humas should be even on Shabbos, not just b'chol, because maybe the kavachimer is good after all. Why? Because you wanted to say that you slug up the kavachimer from Kfuras Meis Mitzvah, which is the Chavaida. No, because maybe, and we wanted to say that it should be Deicha Shabbos from the Kavachimer from Avoida.
That's to imply you need to see the chashuv. But again, not because the word the nasan unto itself means chashuv.
I'm sorry, I skipped a step. Maybe we should say that V'humas is saying even on Shabbos that V'humas is saying that Bezdin should kill the person even on Shabbos. We wanted to say that you have a slug up to the Kavachimer because the Kavachimer says is nidche from Kfuras Meis Mitzvah, which is Deicha Avoida but not Deicha Shabbos. No, because I could tell you that Kfuras Meis Mitzvah is Deicha Shabbos from a Kavachimer from Avoida. Where was it? We said. We said. I'm not finding in the Gemara the second, but we said before that we wanted to say a kavachimer that Kfuras Meis Mitzvah should be Deicha Shabbos. On that, the Gemara continues. That's why it says you can't burn fire in all your communities, but not because it's telling you even in Chutz La'aretz. And later it says by the halachas of Bezdin putting someone to death, of Misas Bezdin, this should be your halachas of Dayanos, Mishpat, in all your dwelling, in all your generations, in all your dwelling places. And we say, Bezdin, just like the Moshavas in this second pasuk is talking about Bezdin. Even when it says it means don't light a fire in all your Meshavas, aka don't light a fire in Bezdin. What does that mean? Torah says don't even light a fire in Bezdin where you would have to do the Misa of Sreifa, which is one of the Arba Misas and involves lighting a fire. You cannot do that in all your Meshavais, and even in Bezdin on Shabbos. So this, going back all the way to the beginning of this Gemara, we said we wanted to say a Kavachimer that Shabbos that's Nideches M'pnei Avoda Ine Din Shtei Ritzicha Adeicha. So that from a Kavachimer that Bezdin should be able to put someone to death on Shabbos. And that Rava says, no, we already have this Tan Be'er Shmuel, this whole long Tan Be'er Shmuel that tells you that that Bezdin cannot put someone to death on Shabbos. Okay, that's l'chayra a little clear. Frak the Gemara, Amar Abaye says, now that you want to say that Ritzicha is not Deicha Shabbos, and we said that means that Bezdin can kill someone on Shabbos, even though he's Chayav Misa. And we know this from the pasuk B'chol Mashvei Seichem, Ein Ritzicha Deiches Avodim Kavachimer. Now I can tell you a new chiddush, which l'chayra should be shloya liba dehilchos. So we'll see it in a second. The new chiddush is that Ritzicha is not the avodah from a kavachimer. In other words, if somebody is about to do the avodah and Bezdin wants to call him out and say, "Hey, we need to put you to death. We need to put you to a din Torah because you Adam came in and said that you killed somebody, or Adam came in and said you're machal Shabbos b'mezid and you should be chayiv misa." So we would tell you from a kavachimer, Bezdin does not have the right to call out a kohen from about to do the avodah. He has to do the avodah anyway. That takes precedence. Why? Shabbos, Shabbos, the halach is Shabbos gets pushed away because of avodah. and because you could do avodah on Shabbos, but still you can't do. We said we limud from a chamash veseichem. You can't Bezdin can't kill somebody on Shabbos. Avodah shideiches Shabbos. So avodah, which is deiches Shabbos, because you are allowed to do the avodah on Shabbos. In addition, that's so strong. Avodah is so strong that Bezdin for sure can't pull anyone away from doing the avodah if they're about to do the avodah because Bezdin wants to go and kill them or put them to the entire for Mises Bezdin. Hi, you'll ask me a question, Rabbi Shmuel. You'll tell me there's a pasuk. You have a pasuk that says that even if a person is the kohen is about to do the avodah, Bezdin's allowed to take him away from the mizbeach to put him to death. There's no such thing as sanctuary when you're going on your way to do the avodah. So what's going on? So what are you going to do with that pasuk? Oh, Rabbi says, I'll tell you what the pasuk is. That's going to be by a case of carbon yachid. This whole kavachomer that we said is by a carbon tzibur. Avodah is deicha Shabbos by a carbon tzibur. So you can say if avodah is deicha Shabbos and ritzicha is deicha. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. That Shabbos that is nidcha because of avodah, that you could do avodah on Shabbos, and ritzicha is not deicha Shabbos. So certainly avodah is deicha ritzicha. That's only by the ritzicha that's only by the avodah that is deicha Shabbos, which is the avodah of a carbon tzibur, the carbon tamid, the carbon musaf, things like that. But a carbon yachid, ahula carbon yachid like deicha Shabbos. Carbon yachid is not deicha Shabbos, so you have no kavachemer for a carbon yachid. Memela, the whole pasuk of mi'im mizbechi tikachenu lamos will be only, according to Abaye right now, will be only in a case where a kohen is about to do an avodah of a carbon yachid. There you don't have the kavachemer, so there Bezdin takes him out and Taka puts him to death or puts him to the entire. But a kohen is doing the avodah of the carbon oil, carbon tamid, or carbon musaf, or I don't know shtei lechem, or any other of the carbon tzibur. There we have a kavachemer to say that mimizbechi doesn't apply, and he can continue doing the avodah. Bezdin can't pull him out. That's the chayra big chiddush, right? But this is what Abaye wants to say. Rava's not so happy with that. Amar Rava says, you see there's a gersa on the side, Ihachi, the gersa in the parentheses, Ihachi, and the Marshal takes it out. Palamaisa Rashi says that this is what he means. Rashi explains that Rava is saying, if this kavachemer, you're going to be doirishit, this kavachemer that you just wanted to say, then you're not going to have mi'im mizbechi at all, because he's going to say that even by a carbon yachid it won't apply. Let's see how. Amar Rava, Ritzicha shouldn't be able to be deicha carbon yachid. That means even if a kohen is doing avodah on a carbon yachid, some random guy is bringing a carbon shlamim as a nedava or a neder or a nedava to the Beis Hamikdash, and Bezdin hears that this kohen who's about to do that avodah should be taken to Bezdin, right? Bezdin can't do that. Why? Because you have a kavachemer. Because ma yamtiv shenitchem if carbon yachid on yantif you could do a carbon yachid a kunadarim and nadav on yantif. If you want to bring a carbon shlamim on yantif, you could bring it. So ein ritzicha deicha isa, and ritzicha is not deicha yantif. Why? Because you're not allowed to kill somebody on Yantif. Bezdin can't kill someone on Yantif, just like Bezdin can't kill someone on Shabbos. The same b'chomash veseichem. Everything, these halachas, the loisa say it's the same thing for Shabbos and Yantif. So Yantif is nidchem because of carbon yachid. You could bring carbon yachid on it, but you still can't do ritzicha. Bezdin can't kill somebody. Carbon yachid shudeiches Yantif. If a carbon yachid is deicha Yantif, because you could do a carbon yachid and yantif, and it didn't shloite ritzicha deicha isai. So ritzicha can't be deicha the carbon yachid. And according to this, you're going to come and say that the whole pasuk miyim mizbechi doesn't apply. There's no situation. You cannot pull a person away from the mizbeach, not if he's doing a carbon tzibur, like we said before, and not if he's doing a carbon yachid. Now, Zak Tabaya, Zak Drava, now, if you're going to go according to the Mandamra that says you're not allowed to bring a carbon yachid on yantif, that if a person wants to bring a carbon shlam on yantif, he can't. He has to wait till Chol Hamoed. right? So then you don't have the Kal V'chomer. So you could say, okay, you're right, Abaya, you're right. You could say that Mi Mizbechi is only talking about Karban Yachid, and Karban Tzibor Taka Bezdin could pull the guy. Bezdin cannot pull the guy away because the avodah is stronger than Bezdin in that sense. But Elamandam and Nudarim and Davis craving b'Yamtif. But according to Mandarim that says you could bring a Nudarim and a Davis on Yantif, then you have this Kal V'chomer, Ma'ikol Memer. What are you going to say? So Rav is basically saying, according to you, Abaya, according to this Kal V'chomer, you said you're going to get into big trouble here, at least according to one man the Amar and a Machlekes and Masech the Bay over here, right? Because you're basically saying you're knocking out a halacha in the Torah, right? A pasuk in the Torah. Bishlam, the one according to one man the Amar, you could say, okay, the pasuk in the Torah is applying only in one situation. That we do all the time. We say you have a limit to say that a pasuk is only applying a little. But you can't say the pasuk doesn't apply at all. You can't knock the pasuk out, right? Elam Rava, so Rava says no, he disagrees with the Abai and he says, Loimi Bailman Amran Darman Davis Craven Biyamtif, Dalam is Kaimi Mizbechi Klau. Not only according to the Man Amra that says the Darman and Davis could be brought on Yantif. That according to that Man Amra we said, if you're going to say the Kal V'chomer, you're not going to have Mizbechi at all. You knocked out that halacha completely, that pasuk completely. Al Filu Man Amran Darman Davis ain't Craven Biyamtif. Even according to the Man Amra that you could touch up and say that you have a Kal V'chomer and then it'd be machalak between a Karban Tzibor and a Karban Yachid, that a Karban Tzibor is a Karban Tzibor is you do say the Kal V'chomer and you do say that and therefore and it does take precedence to Ritzicha, to Bezdin killing him, but only Karban Yachid is what Miyam Mizbechi is, and Karban Yachid you pull the kain away from. So even according to them on the Amar, you don't say that. Why? Because Aksim Miyam Mizbechi, it says Miyam Mizbechi Amayuchid Li, the Mizbeach that's Miyuchid to me Hashem. What is that? What is the Miyuchid, the carbon that's Miyuchid Hashem, the carbon Tamid? So that means, he doesn't mean just the Tamid, he means all Karbanas Tzibur. The Rebbe Hashem is saying, Mizbechi, my Mizbeach, that I bring, that the Kayanim bring my Karbanas Tzibur on it. And the pasuk says, even by Karban Tzibur, you take the guy away and you take him to Bezdin. So you see, the pasuk is saying, klar, that the Kal V'chomer is for the pasuk is saying klar that we don't say this Kal V'chomer, and in all cases, whether a kain is bringing a Karban Yachid, whether a kain is bringing a Karban Tzibor, if Bezdin wants to pull him away, the pasuk is mefurish that you pull him away from the avodah and you take him to Bezdin and put him to din or put him to misa if that's what he's mechayiv to do. That is that Gemara. Okay. It's a bit of a mouthful. Yeah? Okay.
No Aschala. Yeah.
What?
New Aschala right now.
New Aschala. So we said Vayter in the Mishnah, it said, Dine Mamanas Hatmeis Vataras Chulu. The Mishnah said an afkamina between different kinds of dinim. If somebody's having a dinim Mamanas Machlaikes, or if somebody is, the shaila is something is tamei or something is tahar, you go right away and you start off by asking the most chashuv person there, the Av Bezdin, the person who's most chashuv, you ask him what the halach is. But by Tina Nefashis, you start minatzad. You start from the furthest away from the chashuv.
Tzad is the furthest away, not in the middle. Not in the middle, the side, all the way in the side. Where the least chashuv person is sitting, you start with him. Okay, so the Gemara wants to know. The Gemara starts off with a story. Amar Rav says, I was in the minyan on Rebbe's Bezdin. In other words, there was a shaila in Rebbe's Bezdin, and Rashi brings it down. It's a Gemara in Gittin, a shaila about chazaka. If somebody was an armed robber, a bandit sitting on a piece of karka, and that was all shaila. In other words, there was a dinei mamon shaila. And they started from me first. Now Rav was a Talmud, right? He was not as great as Rebbe. We said in the Mishnah by Dinei Mamon, you start from the greater person. Fact the Gemara What? Dinei
Fashi start from the side, from the smallest person. But Dinei Mamon you start from the biggest person. We learned in the Mishnah that you start from the biggest person. I'm a Rabba Breda Rava, Vitim Rab Hill Breda Rab Vivalis. It's not a common name. This Rabbi Valas. We don't see that often in Shas.
Yeah.
Rabbi Rava, some sort of Hilbrei Rav Valas said, Shani Minyana Dvei Rebbe, the minion in Rebbe's house was different. The Kulam Minyanayim and Atzad Havamaskli. Because whatever it was, whatever Shaila was, they would start from the side. Because Rashi explains that Rebbe was such an anav that he refused to start from anywhere but the side. Rabbi Rava says, some say Rabbi Rava said, Moshe Vad Rabbi, from the days of Moshe Rabbeinu until Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, Lamatzinu Torah Ugdula b'makom echad. You don't find that the preeminent authority of Torah and the preeminent ruler of Klal Yisrael was the same person. Moshe Rabbeinu was, and then until Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, you didn't see that again. In fact, it's not so. Yeshua was the gave over the Torah, and he was the manig of Klal Yisrael. So he had Torah Gdul b'makom echad. Our answers have Elazar. There was Elazar. Elazar HaKohen was there, and Elazar HaKohen was just as chashuv as Yeshua and Torah. In fact, the Marvahava Pinchas, later after Yeshua and Elazar were nifter, there was Pinchas, and Pinchas was the leader of Klal Yisrael, and he was also the leader in Torah as well. And the Gemara says, have his Zkanim, there was the Zkanim there, and the Zkanim were also
on that level.
Asniel ben Kanaz, Ivtzon, who was Bayaz. We're talking about great people, so it wasn't Torah Gdul b'makom echad. In fact, the Gemara, going down a couple of hundred years, we have a Shaul. Shaul was a great Torah scholar, and he was also the leader of the Melech of Klal Yisrael. Where it says have a Shmuel. Now Shmuel wasn't the leader of Klal Yisrael, but he was a great Torah scholar. He was great in Torah, so he didn't have Torah Gdula b'makom echad. Shmuel died before Shaul. So once Shmuel died, what? You skipped the line. Go back a line. Where it says have a Shmuel, there was Shmuel. In fact, the Gemara of Nach Nafshe, Shmuel died when Shaul was still alive. So now once Shmuel died, now you had Shaul was the preeminent Torah leader and the preeminent leader because he was the king. Where it says, no, Kulu Shani Kaminan, we're saying all his years. Moshe Rabbeinu was always the leader in Torah and Gedula, right? But it's true, once Shmuel was nifter, Shaul was the leader in Torah and Gedula, but not all his life, because Shmuel was alive, part of Shmuel's life overlapped with Shaul's life. In fact, the Maravav David, he had David HaMelech, he was a Torah leader and the king. Where it says, Ira was a great Talmud Chacham, and the Gemara brings down the Gemara in David in Mayit Katan that David HaMelech respected was machabed Ira's Torah learning even more than his own. So one Ira was there, therefore it wasn't Torah Gdul b'makom echad. Nach Nafshe, Ira died before David. Kulu Shani Kamrin. The same Torah say before. We're talking about all the years of David. He wasn't Torah Gdul b'makom echad all his years, like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was and like Moshe Rabbeinu was. Shleima Melech. Where it says Shimi ben Gera. Shimi ben Gera was there because, and he was a great Torah scholar. Where it says Va'katle, Shleima Melech killed Shimi ben Gera. Where it says Kulu Shani Kamrin. We're saying all his life. Shleima Melech wasn't all his life Torah Gdul b'makom echad. V'hav Chizkiah. He had Chizkiah Melech. Where it says have a Shavna. If you remember, we said a couple of blot back, a parak or two back, we said that Shavna had 113,000 or 115,000 in this year, and Chizkiah had, I think, only 111,000 this year. You see, Shavna gave shir. Tens of thousands of people came. He's a big Torah scholar. So since he was there, Chizkiah wasn't the same. Ava Ikto. Same Torah, it's Kuli Shani Kamina. Vav Ezra, you had Ezra Sefer, where it says, have Nechemi ben Chachlayach. Nechemi ben Chachlayach was there also. Amar Rav Adav, Rav says, Afani Omer, I say another memra. Rabbi Beidrav and some Serapil Beidrav Vala said, Moshe until Rabbi, you didn't have Torah Gdula. So, what?
I think you skipped.
No, I'm quoting what it said before. Before we said, from Moshe till Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, you didn't have Torah Gdula. Now Rav Adav says a new part. Afani Omer, I say the following. Rebbe from Rabbi Yehuda Nasi ad Rav Ashi until Rav Ashi. You didn't have Torah Gdul Makmechad. Rav Ashi was also Torah Gdul Makmechad, just like Moshe Rabbeinu and just like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Fraktimar of Loi, it's not so. Huna Bar Nasan. There's Huna Bar Nasan was there, and he was Gadol in Gdula and Torah in Makam Echad, where it says Huna Bar Nasan make of Abakayif Leila Rav Ashi. Huna Bar Nasan considered himself subservient to Rav Ashi, and therefore it's not considered Torah Gdula Makam Echad like Rav Ashi was. Okay. Then the Mishnah continued and said, Din nefashis muschilim outside, but Din nefashis start from the side. In fact, the Gemara of Nani really, how do you know this? Amar of Acha bar Papa, Amar Kra, Rav Acha bar Papa says from the following pasuk, Leisana al Riv. The pasuk says Leisana al Riv. And if you look in the Chumash, when it says Leisana al Riv, there's no yud there. When we read it, there's a chirak, but there's no yud. So we could read it, we could darshan Leisana al Rav. Don't answer on what the greater person than you said. That means once the Av Bezdin says his psak, you shouldn't argue. Now, if you can't argue, you'll be stuck. If he says one thing, everyone's not going to argue and then say the same thing. So you have to start from the smallest one, and that way you could get your vote in, and then he says his vote last, and then you do the minyan. Rabbi Bechana Rabbi Yechon, Rabbi Hacha. Rabbi Bechana said near Rabbi Yechon from the following: Naval was murdered by Malchus to David. David has the Navi was Moshe David to be the Melech, and Naval said something like Mi'ato Ben Yishai. I forgot the exact language. He was married to Malchus. He was spoken without kavod to David. It says Vayomer, and David felt that he needed to deserve punishment. Vayomer David la'anashav. David said to his men, Chigru ishes charad. Each person should gird his sword on him. And each person put a sword on him. And then David and David also put on a sword. What's going on over here? The Malbim on this pasuk says that when each one, when they sat down to Dan to judge whether Naval deserved Misal to be married Malchus, and each one, if he felt that there was chayiv, he put his sword on to indicate that it's chayiv. And David HaMelech didn't put his sword until the end. You see, since he was the Av Bezdin, he was the most chashav, he didn't want to say his psak first, so you see that you always start Manatzad by Din Nefashis. Okay? And it goes without saying that married Malchus is Din Nefashis. Zakt Gemara weiter. Amarav, Shayna Adam Talmidai, V'dan Imei B'din Nefashis. A person could teach to his Talmud. In other words, you could have a Rebbe and a Talmud sitting in a Bezdin, and you could judge with him in Dinei Nefashis. What does that mean? It means that the Rebbe and the Talmud could handle back and forth what the halach is, and then you could count the Talmud as a vote to patra the guy. In the Bezdin, you count the Talmud. Track the Gemara. Meisvei Asukasha Hataras Vatmeis Ha'avu V'nai Harav V'Talmidai. When you ask a shaila by Taras and Tmeis, which don't require a bezdin, you just ask one person. By Taras and Tmeis. In those cases, Ha'avu V'nai Harav V'Talmidai, a father and a son, a rebbe and a talmid, Meinin Lam Shnayim. You count them as two votes. But by Dinei Mamnas, or Dinei Nefashas, Dinei Makas, Kiddush HaChodesh V'Brashana, in the cases of Dinei Mamnas, which Benatera requires 3, Dinei Nefashas, which requires 23, Dinei Makas, which requires 3. We said the Dinei Makas, we said the Machlekes, right? We said in the Mishnah, I think Dinei Makas requires 23, right? Kiddush HaChodesh, which requires 3, 5, which requires 3 also. The Ibr Shana requires 3, 5, and 7, we said. All those cases are required to have a number. In those cases, Avu V'nai, a Rav Talmidai, Iman Lan Elechad. A Rav and his son and his Talmud, or a father and a son, they cannot combine. They cannot combine. They cannot count as 2 separate votes. They only count them as one. And Rashi says,
a Talmud and a Rav has but Rav and B'nai can belong to someplace else.
What do you mean?
You have a Rav and a Talmud. So the Talmud knows his halacha through his Rav. So the same exact thing. But Rav and B'nai, if the Rav wasn't Machar to B'nai, the B'nai has another shita.
I don't think you're wrong with what you're saying, but I do think that in the old days, most of a person's Torah was learned from his father, right? Some people would go to learn by other people. But if you remember the Gemara by Rab Ben Gamla, right? Rabbi Shua Ben Gamla, who it says that without him it would have been Nishtach Torah Yisrael, because he basically invented the yeshiva system. It's apparent that until then a person learned by his father, right? So normally an Avid B'nai would be saying consistent shittas. And in fact, Rashi quotes, and this is not speaking directly to your question, but just right in the Gemara, Rashi says that the end of this price, which our Gemara doesn't quote, is that if the Avu B'nai are there, the Rav Talmidai, the Ben or the Talmud should pick himself up and go out. He shouldn't even sit there during that time. Not only does he not get counted, he shouldn't even be there. So now the Gemara is asking that you're telling me that a person that you could count the vote of the Talmud by Dina Nefashis. We see a Beferish Bryce that says you can't. Right? That only counts as one vote. And for the Gemara, Kikam Rav Kun Rav Kana Rav Asi. Rav is saying in a situation like Rav Kana and Rav Asi. What kind of Talmidim were Rav Kana and Rav Asi? The Gemara the Rav Avatzrichi. U'Lisvari the Rav Lo Avatzrichi. That they were so chashav that they were so chashav. There's such Talmidei Chachamim that they only needed the tradition, the Messiah from the Rebbe, what the halacha was, right? Just like all of Klal Yisrael has the Messiah from Moshe Rabbeinu, what the halacha is. But they didn't need the svara. They were independent thinkers, and they'd be able to take the halachas and build them, and add and subtract and build, and come up with what the halacha should be. So for that, they're considered independent, and therefore they count as a separate vote to for Dinei Nefashis. We said in our Mishnah 10 things, and we had a long Mishnah, right? And we said 10 things between Dinei Mamas and Dinei Nefashis. And all 10 are not negeya by Shar HaNiskal, except except for the 23. In other words, except for the 23 dayanim that you need to have a shar niskal, because we said a drasha misabal shar, something like that, right? So
23. Yeah.
It's just like the Baal needs 23 for Misa, so too the Shar does. So, but everything else we don't say by Shar and Iskal. We those are only by Dinei Nefashis of a person. How do you know this? Pasuk says, don't be mata the mishpat of yain chabrivai. When you have a person, mishpat of yain chayata mata. You can't lean over the psak and go and be mechayiv somebody based on a mata of one person. When you don't have a roiv of two, you only have a mata of one, you can't do that psak. Avlata mata mishpat shel shar niskal, but you could switch over the mishpat of shar niskal even if it's only one. So in other words, if a shar niskal is 13 to 12 to be mechayiv, 12 to 11 to be mechayiv him. Right, so you have 23 total. 12 are mechayev, 11 are pater. By a person, mishpat ev yaincha, you would say not a good psak. You can't possibly be mechayev the guy. By a shar niskal, there you could. And just like over there, we say by a shar niskal, you don't go the halacha like medina nefashis, right? So too, all the other halachas, the other nine halachas are the same thing. That they're all there to go and be v'hitzilu ha'eda, to make it more likely that the person who is having Dinei Nefashis should be able to escape, should not get killed. But Shar Niskal, what do we care about that? We don't really care about those halachas by Shar Niskal, and therefore the other ones, all the other halachas are also not negaya. The Gemara says, "Asara, you tell me 10 halachas." Hatesavu, there's 9. In fact, the Gemara, you tell me 9. Ha'asaraktani, it says in our Mishnah 10 halachas. The Gemara says, "Mishum de'ena kol ksherin ve'esrim u'shleisha chadihi." The halacha, the reason why we're really asking that it's 9 is because the halacha ena kol ksherin, that you're not allowed to have everyone in a dinei mamonis, everyone's kosher to be a dayan. You're a Jew, you're a dayan. But by dinei nefashos, it has to be miyuchas. It can't be ben gerim, it can't be ben amamzer, right? So that halacha is the same halacha essentially as 23. That you have to have 23. You have to have 23 who are miyuchis because you have to have that level by din and nefashos of chashav liyadim. So therefore, those are essentially the same halacha. So that's what the Gemara is asking. There's only 9, and on that the Gemara says no. There's really a 10th halacha also. It's just not in our Mishnah. There's another halacha also, a 10th halacha, which is why we said there's 10 halachas between Shar Niskal and between Din Amamnas and Din Fashas. The Tanya learned in the Brisa, Ein Moshe Sanhedrin Zakin V'Saras U'Misha En Lebanim. You don't put on a Sanhedrin someone who's old, because if he's old, he forgot what it's like to raise kids, and he doesn't have Rachmanas, and so too a Saras, and someone else doesn't have sons, same thing, is not able to have the proper Rachmanas to judge Din and Nefashis. This halacha is also a halacha only by Din and Nefashis, and not by Din and Mamnas, and also not by Shar Niskal. Also, someone who's a cruel person is not allowed to be a dayan in din and nefashis. And the opposite by mesis. By mesis umediach, someone who is convinces someone else to have a desire. In that case, you could have all these halachas on these on the bezdin. You want an achzara. You want someone who doesn't have rachmanis. Yeah, that's how the halach is. Everyone is kosher to be do din and mamnas, we said, but not everyone's kosher to do din and fashas. What's that kol coming to be marba? It's coming to be marba and mamzer. Then a mamzer could also do din and mamnas. We already learned this once. We said Kol haroi, we had this before. Kol haroi ladin din and nefashas, roi ladin din and mamnas. Anyone who's roi to judge din and nefashas is roi to judge din and mamnas. V'yesh roi ladin din and mamnas, v'en roi ladin din and nefashas. Some people could do din and mamnas, but cannot do din and nefashas. V'avin ban, we asked Asuy Mai, what's this coming to be marba? V'am Rav Yehuda, and Rav Yehuda said the same Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda said Asuy mamzer to be marba mamzer. So you see that over. He's saying to be Marba Mamzer over here, and he's saying to be Marba Mamzer over there. Why do you have to have both? If the Gemara, no, you're right. It's not both being Marba Mamzer. Chadal Asuya Ger. The Chadal Asuya Mamzer. You need one to tell you that a Ger could be a Daim Badina Mamres, and you need one to tell you that a Mamzer could be a Daim Badina Mamres. Utzrichen, you have to have both. You can't burn out one from the other. Diashmin and Ger, the Roy Lavi Bakal. I could say a ger, I would say, is mutter to be a dayan for Dina Mamnes because he's able to marry a regular Bas Yisrael. Ger. Mamzer cannot. Aval Mamzer Emalois. But Mamzer can't, maybe he can't be a dayan, even for Dina Mamnes. Mamzer,
it's not his fault, really.
It's not his fault. But and in fact, the Gemara says, Yeshmin Mamzer, if you tell you a Mamzer that a Mamzer could be a dayan, I would say, you know why a Mamzer could be a dayan? The Bami Tipak Shera. He was born from a Yid. His mother was a Yid, his father was a Yid. Yes, they weren't able to marry each other, and they were Mazana, and therefore he's a Mamzer. But Lamaisa, he came from Jewish stock. Aval Ger, Ger came from his parents were Goyim. So therefore, Emaloi, I would say that he cannot be a dayan. Shricha, that's what Rav Yehuda had to tell us twice. Both a ger could be a dayan and a mamzer could be a dayan. But not everyone is kosher to judge din and mamnas. My time, huh? Why? The Tanya of Rav Yosef says, "Kashem shebezdin menukin b'tzedek." Just like Bezdin has to be clean with tzedek, the pasuk says, "With tzedek tishbalam yisecha." Just like they have to be menukim b'tzedek, hach menukim b'kolmam. A Bezdin of din and nefashas has to be completely clean from any mum. That means they even have to have a good yichas. Amar Ameim or Maikra.
Menukim b'kolmam?
Yeah, they can't have any mum, right? And that means they have to have even a good yichas. No pagam on them.
A mum means mum, not a woman's body.
Right. Abraham Meimer Maikra. Meimer says, what's the pasuk tells us? This pasuk Shir Shirim. Kulach yafa riyasi mumembach. You're completely beautiful, my friend, and you don't have any mum. Track the Gemara, your kasha. Gemara's about to ask your kasha. Vidilma mum mamish. Maybe it means a regular mum, not a not a mum of pagam mishpacha, of not having yichus. It means the guy has a foot that's cut off. Maybe that's what it means. The Gemara says, Amar Rav Achbar Yaakov Amar Krav Visyas V'Sham Imach.
You find that in Sukkah over Gosel beginning Pesach V'Ziver.
Yeah.
But they're
goes to the mum by Kahanim.
In the over Gosel.
Yeah, the things that a kohen can't have and a carbon can't have, right? So maybe it's one of those women. Gemara says no. Amar Rav Achbar Yaakov Amar Krav. The pasuk says Visyas V'Sham Imach B'Daimanach. The pasuk says that that when Moshe gathered the 70s Canaan by the Ma'aseh of El Dodimeda that we already had, the pasuk says they'll stand there Imach with you and the Gemara darshans Imach B'Daimanach. They're just like you, Yosef is Moshe Rabbeinu is a miyachis. So too, all these 70s Canaan have to be miyuchasim. Frak the Gemara, no, you can't learn that. Over here, they were all getting Hashras HaShechina. So that's why they have to be Imach B'day Mulach. But in a regular case of a Bezdin, they're not getting Hashras HaShechina. Elamar of Nachmar, Yitzchak HaMakra, V'nasu Itach. Itach B'day Mulach Lehava. The pasuk V'nasu Itach is talking about by Yisrael. When Yisrael gave the Eitzah to Moshe Rabbeinu to make one Shabbat Dinim, and he said, V'nasu Itach, they'll carry with you the load of being the dayan. So over there, it's not talking about the Shechina. And over there, we learn from there, but they should be like you. Let's stop here. And Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow you have the wedding. Be'ez Hashem, on Sunday, we'll start the first half of the new parak, Daf Yomi Sanhedrin. Start a new parak.